The sun hung low over the rolling plains as the wolf tribe approached the small border town, their horses kicking up clouds of dust that shimmered in the golden light. At the head of the procession rode the wolf chief, a figure whose presence seemed to command both respect and curiosity. Tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair caught the sun in waves, and his piercing eyes held a depth that made even the bravest men avert their gaze. Rumors of his ruthlessness had traveled ahead of him, painting a picture of a man feared by many, but those who looked closer whispered of a complexity hidden beneath the stern exterior. In the heart of the town, preparations for the chief's arrival were underway. Townsfolk bustled through the cobblestone streets, sweeping and decorating for the anticipated visit. Yet, despite the excitement, one person felt neither fear nor curiosity. She felt a quiet certainty of where her heart and loyalty lay. Elena, the general's daughter, moved gracefully through the courtyard of her father's estate, her auburn hair glinting in the sunlight. She was known throughout the town not only for her beauty, but for her intelligence, wit, and steadfast moral compass. Today she wore a simple but elegant dress in soft blue, a color that matched the serenity she carried in her demeanor. As the wolf chief entered the town gates, his eyes scanned the square, instantly drawn to Elena. For a moment, the world seemed to slow. He observed her with curiosity, not the curiosity of desire alone, but of a man intrigued by a woman whose spirit radiated independence and quiet strength. Elena, aware of the onlookers but not yet of his gaze, moved with effortless composure, adjusting a garland of flowers her younger sister had woven. She was promised to another, a match that had been arranged with care, based on trust, respect, and duty. Yet there was an undeniable tension in the air the moment their eyes met, a spark that both frightened and intrigued them. The wolf chief dismounted with measured grace, his movements deliberate, almost ceremonial. He was met by the town's elders and officials, including Elena's father, the general, who regarded him with a mixture of suspicion and cautious hospitality. While introductions were made with formal bows and polite words, the undercurrent of unspoken curiosity flowed stronger than any conversation. Every word exchanged between the chief and Elena carried subtle weight. A smile that lingered too long, a look that held unspoken recognition, the slight tilt of the head. These small gestures were enough to spark speculation in those who noticed. Despite the town's preparations, Elena remained composed. She knew her heart and her obligations. Her engagement to her betrothed was a commitment she did not take lightly. Still, the wolf chief's presence awakened a curiosity she had never felt before. There was something about him, a combination of confidence, mystery, and unexpected gentleness that set him apart from anyone she had known. It was clear he was a man accustomed to getting what he wanted, yet his approach carried an unexpected respect. Instead of pressing or demanding, he observed, listened, and occasionally spoke in a voice that was calm yet commanding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the first evening of the wolf chief's visit brought an air of anticipation. Lanterns were lit along the streets, their warm glow reflecting off the walls and cobblestones, creating an intimate and almost magical atmosphere. Elena walked alongside her father as he explained the town's customs and protocols, yet her mind occasionally drifted to the chief, who conversed quietly with the elders. She noticed the subtle way he carried himself, his attention to detail, his measured gestures, and the occasional flicker of amusement in his eyes when he observed something unusual. By nightfall, the wolf chief had made his presence felt, not through force or intimidation, but through sheer charisma and an aura of intrigue. Elena felt the first real stirrings of something she could not yet name: curiosity, attraction, perhaps even admiration. And though she reminded herself repeatedly of her promise to another, a seed of tension had been planted, a spark that would grow in the days to come. The stage was set for a story of emotional entanglement, mutual respect, and the slow-burning pull of hearts drawn together across boundaries and obligations. In the quiet of her chamber, Elena reflected on the day, wondering if it was possible to remain loyal to duty while acknowledging the stirrings of a heart suddenly awakened. Outside, the Wolf Chief gazed at the town lights from his quarters, thinking the same thing, aware that fate had placed them on a collision course that neither could ignore. The next morning dawned with a soft pink sky, the kind that made the town's rooftops gleam like rose gold. Birds chirped as if heralding a day of significance, and the town seemed to hum with quiet anticipation. The Wolf Chief, ever observant, took note of every detail. The way the sunlight fell across the market square, the rhythm of the town's morning activity, and most importantly, Elena's presence as she moved gracefully through the courtyard to greet her father. Elena's life had always been structured. Her days followed a rhythm of duty, study, and small pleasures like reading by the window or helping the townsfolk with their daily routines. She cherished these moments of quiet fulfillment, unaware of the subtle chaos that had quietly followed the Wolf Chief's arrival. Today, however, that calm was about to be interrupted. The Wolf Chief requested a private audience with Elena and her father. The general, cautious but curious, agreed, seating them in the sunlit library of the estate. The room smelled faintly of parchment and polished wood, a comforting contrast to the tension that seemed to fill the space. The chief's eyes lingered on Elena, his gaze steady yet unreadable as he began to speak. "General," he said, his voice deep and measured, "I have come not only as a visitor but as a man who admires your family greatly. Yet I must speak plainly. I desire your daughters' company more than just as a guest or a friend." Elena's breath caught, though her expression remained composed. She had anticipated curiosity, perhaps admiration, but not a declaration that felt so daring, so sudden. She glanced at her father, who shifted slightly in his seat, his brows furrowed with concern yet careful restraint. "Appreciate your words, Chief," Elena replied evenly, her tone polite but firm. "However, I am promised to another. I cannot entertain such a proposal." The chief inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words, though his eyes remained fixed on her. There was no anger, no force behind his statement, only an intensity that was almost magnetic. "I expected as much," he admitted, a hint of amusement flickering in his eyes. "And yet, I could not leave without speaking my heart. It would be dishonorable to hide my intentions, even if you do not return them." Elena felt a mix of surprise and unease. He was bold, undeniably so, yet there was a respect in his approach that she had not expected. Most men of influence would have tried to pressure or manipulate. He simply spoke his truth, leaving the choice entirely to her. It was infuriating and intriguing all at once. "I am grateful for your honesty," she said carefully, "but my loyalty is to my betrothed. My heart is already promised, and I cannot betray that trust, no matter what admiration you might feel for me." The chief smiled faintly, as though he had anticipated such a response. "I admire that loyalty," he said softly. "It speaks of character, and character is far rarer than beauty alone. I see in you a woman of principle and spirit. That is why I am drawn to you, not merely for what is visible to the eyes, but for what is steadfast in the soul." Elena's cheeks flushed slightly, though she tried to maintain her composure. She had not expected praise of such depth, and the words stirred something unfamiliar in her chest, a mixture of curiosity, intrigue, and a flutter she could not name. For a few moments, silence filled the room. It was not awkward. It was deliberate, weighted with understanding and unspoken recognition. Elena realized that this man, who had been rumored to be ruthless and unyielding, carried a complexity that made him unpredictable in ways she could neither ignore nor fully Comprehend. Finally, she rose, signaling the conversation's end. I thank you for your honesty, Chief. I hope you will respect my decision and my commitment to my betrothed. He inclined his head, eyes still holding hers. I will, for now, he said, a subtle promise hiding behind his words. But know this, the mind can be persuaded, yet the heart often listens to its own counsel. Time may reveal truths neither of us anticipate. As Elena left the room, her mind churned with thoughts she could not yet name. The Wolf Chief, meanwhile, watched her go, a quiet determination settling over him. He would not coerce or manipulate, but he would wait, observe, and if the fates allowed, earn the chance to know the woman whose heart was already promised to another dot in the stillness of the library. The stage was set. The dance of intrigue, attraction, and subtle challenge had begun, a dance that would pull both of them into a story neither could have anticipated. The town buzzed with excitement as the long-awaited spring festival arrived. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, colorful banners fluttered above the cobblestone streets, and the aroma of freshly baked bread and roasted nuts filled the air. This was a celebration of community, music, and tradition, and the townsfolk were eager to show their visitors, including the Wolf Chief and his tribe, the warmth and spirit of their home. Elena moved among the festival stalls, her eyes bright with curiosity as she admired the crafts and the games. Despite the vibrancy of the crowd, she couldn't shake the subtle awareness that the Wolf Chief was observing her from a distance. He moved among the townsfolk with ease, but his gaze often found hers, lingering just long enough to make her heart skip a beat. The festival offered an unexpected opportunity, a series of friendly contests designed to encourage collaboration between different communities. The Wolf Chief was paired with Elena for the first event, a test of agility and coordination in a playful game where participants had to guide small, delicate lanterns across a series of obstacles without letting them fall. Elena raised an eyebrow, uncertain if she should be amused or wary. I hope you're better at this than you are at diplomacy, she teased. Her tone light but challenging. The chief's lips curved into a subtle smile. I find that some challenges require patience more than strength, he replied smoothly, his dark eyes sparkling with amusement. Let us see if your skill matches your wit. The game began, and Elena and the chief moved side by side. Their hands brushed occasionally, sending sparks of surprise through her, though neither made a comment. She was struck by his careful attention, not only to the task at hand but to her comfort and safety. Each gentle suggestion or shared laugh drew her in, revealing a side of him that no rumor had hinted at. As they reached the final obstacle, a sudden misstep sent a lantern teetering precariously. Without hesitation, the chief steadied it with a swift, sure motion, saving the fragile prize. Elena looked up at him, a mix of gratitude and admiration flashing in her eyes. He simply inclined his head, his expression calm, almost amused by the intensity of her reaction. After the contest, the two wandered through the festival together, sampling sweet pastries and watching children perform a small play. Elena began to notice small details about him, how he listened intently to the performers, how he laughed softly at the playful antics of the children, and how his presence, though commanding, never felt oppressive. It was clear that beneath the surface of the ruthless title lay a man capable of warmth, humor, and genuine curiosity. Their conversation grew more personal, exploring topics far removed from duty or decorum. Elena spoke of her love for books and the quiet pleasure of sketching the landscapes around her home. The chief shared tales of his travels and his people, describing traditions and stories that revealed a deep respect for history and community. Each word, each shared smile, wove a delicate thread between them, a connection neither could deny but both were hesitant to name. Yet even amid laughter and growing intimacy, Elena reminded herself of her betrothal. Every smile exchanged carried an undercurrent of tension, the silent struggle between duty and the magnetic pull of something undeniably stirring between them. For his part, the Wolf Chief respected the boundaries she set, never pressing, never demanding, but observing with patience and quiet fascination as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, casting a golden glow over the festival. Elena and the Pilla Chief stood side by side, watching lanterns float into the evening sky. The air was thick with unspoken words, mutual curiosity, and the thrill of a connection that neither time nor circumstance could easily sever. By the end of the festival, the townsfolk whispered about the unusual pair, the Wolf Chief and the Vivef and the General's daughter. Yet the whispers were not of scandal, but of intrigue. Everyone sensed that something delicate and extraordinary had begun, a bond built not on force or expectation, but on shared moments, laughter, and subtle understanding. Elena returned home that night, her mind buzzing with thoughts she could not fully name. The Wolf Chief's presence lingered in her thoughts like a melody she could not forget. And somewhere within the quiet of the Wolf Chief's camp, he too reflected on the day, recognizing that patience, observation, and subtle charm might accomplish what power and force never could. The stage was no longer set, it was alive. A dance of hearts, trust, and slow-burning attraction had begun, and neither Elena nor the Wolf Chief could predict where it would lead. The morning after the festival dawned with a gentle mist hovering over the town, softening the edges of rooftops and trees. Elena walked through the garden of her family estate, her thoughts still lingering on the Wolf Chief. Despite her steadfast commitment to her betrothed, she could not deny the spark she felt with the enigmatic leader. She had always prided herself on her clarity of mind, yet she found it increasingly difficult to dismiss the pull of curiosity and intrigue he inspired. Meanwhile, the Wolf Chief moved quietly among his camp, studying the town from a distance. He was a man of discipline, yet even he found his thoughts drifting toward Elena. Her composure, intelligence, and courage had impressed him, but it was her honesty and unwavering moral compass that truly captivated him. He had long been accustomed to admiration and attention, yet with Elena there was no artifice, only an authentic, steady presence that drew him in. That afternoon, fate provided the opportunity for them to meet again. A misunderstanding in the town market required the Wolf Chief's assistance. A small, valuable item had gone missing, and while it was quickly resolved, the chief accompanied Elena to ensure she was not burdened by the minor chaos. As they walked together through the quiet streets, their conversation drifted naturally, from the trivial to the personal. "You seem comfortable here," the Wolf Chief remarked, his gaze thoughtful. "And yet, you carry yourself with a confidence that suggests you've spent little time yielding to others' expectations." Elena smiled faintly, a trace of curiosity in her eyes. "Perhaps," she said, "or perhaps I've learned that. Standing firmly on what matters allows others to respect my choices. But your presence here is not merely as an observer, is it?" He chuckled softly, the sound rich and warm. "No, it is not. I am a visitor, yes, but I am also intrigued. Some things cannot be observed from afar. They must be understood through proximity, through shared experience." As they spoke, a gentle hush fell over the streets. The town, usually alive with chatter and movement, seemed to fade into the background, leaving just the two of them in a quiet bubble of understanding. Elena felt the first hint of trust forming, subtle yet undeniable. There was no pressure, no attempt to manipulate, only a man showing his authentic self, a side of him few had ever seen. Later, Elena stumbled upon a secluded courtyard tucked behind the town library, a place rarely visited. To her surprise, the Wolf Chief was already there, seated near a small fountain. He looked up as she approached, his expression unreadable yet inviting. "I did not expect to see you here," Elena said, careful yet curious. "I come where peace can be found," he replied simply, "and I thought you might enjoy the quiet as much as I do." Something shifted in the air, a moment of genuine connection. Elena noticed a small notebook resting on the fountain's edge. Inside were sketches, not maps or strategic plans as she might have expected, but delicate drawings of landscapes, towns, and even the people of his tribe in their daily lives. The Wolf Chief's stern reputation melted away under the weight of this revelation. Here was a man who observed, who cherished beauty, who expressed himself with care and sensitivity. "These are yours?" she asked softly. He nodded, a rare vulnerability crossing his face. "I have always drawn what I admire. It is a part of me, you see. I trust you to understand that it is not vanity, but expression, a way to honor what matters." Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she saw him not as a figure of fear or authority, but as a man with depth, tenderness, and a quiet passion. "It's beautiful," she said sincerely, her voice filled with admiration. "And it shows a side of you that no one else has witnessed." For the next hour they spoke freely, sharing small truths about themselves, their hopes, and the values that guided them. Each revelation deepened the connection between them, not through attraction alone, but through trust and understanding. Elena began to realize that her initial curiosity was evolving into something more profound, a recognition of the man behind the title dot. By the time the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard, both of them knew that their bond had strengthened. It was no longer a fleeting spark, but the beginning of a deeper connection, built on honesty, respect, and the courage to reveal one's true self. As they parted that evening, Elena walked home with a sense of wonder she had not felt in years. While the Wolf Chief remained by the fountain, quietly observing the first stars appear. Both were aware that the days ahead would bring challenges, but for the first time, there was hope that what had begun as curiosity might grow into something lasting, gentle, and profoundly meaningful. This event, filled with music, dancing, and quiet lantern-lit strolls, offered opportunities for deeper interaction and the tasks were simple: arranging flowers, guiding festival performances, and assisting with decorative lanterns. Yet in each small shared activity, the space between them seemed to shrink, carrying a carefully woven basket of flowers. "I must confess, I am learning much from your attention to detail." Elena smiled faintly, adjusting a petal in the arrangement. "It's simple work," she said, though the gentle compliment in his tone made her pulse quicken. "Patience is a virtue, though I suspect it is not one I have been known for," he admitted. Yet there was no arrogance in his admission. Passing tools, leaning over lanterns, arranging garlands side by side, it was all innocent, yet the closeness sparked something tender in Elena. She caught herself noticing the curve of his jaw. Elena found herself walking beside the chief, their hands brushing as they carried the delicate lights. She quickly reminded herself of her betrothal, of duty, yet the connection was undeniable. The Wolf Chief, sensing her hesitation, did not push, he merely walked beside her, exuding a quiet strength and patience that drew her in without forcing her heart. At the square, the townsfolk gathered to admire the lanterns as they floated into the evening sky, casting soft reflections on the cobblestones. For a moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them, the glow of the lanterns framing their shared space. "You have a way of seeing beauty in small things," Elena said quietly, glancing at him. "It is rare." He met her gaze steadily. "And you have a way of making simple moments feel important," he replied. "It is compelling." The words lingered in the cool night air, unspoken emotions resonating between them. Elena felt. An unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest, an acknowledgement that the chief's presence affected her more deeply than she expected. Yet she also felt the weight of her obligations, a gentle reminder of the promise she had made to another Dot as the night continued. They found themselves sitting quietly by the fountain near the square, the sounds of music and laughter drifting softly around them. Conversation flowed easily, touching on childhood memories, small hopes, and dreams yet to be realized. Each story shared, each laugh exchanged, strengthened the invisible bond growing between them. There was no rush, no pressure, only the slow, gentle unfolding of mutual understanding and admiration. Before parting for the evening, the chief handed Elena a small lantern with her name inscribed in elegant script. "A token for the night," he said softly. "May it remind you that even in fleeting moments, something meaningful can take root." "Thank you," she said, her voice soft, carrying more than just gratitude. As she walked home under the starlit sky, Elena realized that the Wolf Chief was no longer just a figure of intrigue. He was someone who had begun to touch her heart, not through grand gestures or force, but through patience, kindness, and genuine connection. For his part, the chief returned to his quarters aware that the dance between them was growing more intricate, more tender, and that the days ahead would test not only desire, but the depth of their mutual respect and understanding. In the quiet of that night, both knew that the pull between them was real, subtle, and undeniable. Their hearts had begun a journey together, one that would require courage, patience, and the willingness to embrace feelings neither had anticipated. The morning sun spilled over the town, casting golden light across rooftops and streets that still smelled faintly of the previous night's festival. For Elena, the day began with her usual routine, helping with household affairs, attending to small errands, and ensuring the estate was in order. Yet even amid these familiar tasks, her thoughts wandered to the Wolf Chief. His presence had become a quiet rhythm in her life, a force that demanded neither attention nor command, yet made itself felt with each glance, each subtle word, each shared laugh. That morning, however, a whisper began to circulate among the townsfolk. A rumor, harmless in intention but prone to exaggeration, suggested that the Wolf Chief had been seen lingering unusually close to Elena during the previous evening's festivities. Though the encounters had been innocent small gestures, casual conversations, the story twisted in retellings, giving the impression of impropriety. Elena caught snippets of these whispers as she moved through the streets, her heart tightening with concern. Meanwhile, the Wolf Chief was unaware of the growing rumor. He spent the morning coordinating with his tribe, reviewing plans for trade and hospitality, and reflecting on the subtle but undeniable connection he shared with Elena. To him, their interactions were natural, respectful, and delightful, but he could not yet anticipate the challenges that external perception could bring. The first real tension came when Elena's betrothed, Marcus, arrived unexpectedly at the estate. He had heard the rumor, and though he trusted Elena, could not help but feel uncertainty and unease. "Elena," he began cautiously, "I hear things." Elena's brow furrowed in surprise and mild frustration. "Marcus," she replied firmly, "there is nothing inappropriate. The chief is my guest, and I have behaved with the utmost respect. You must not believe idle gossip over what is true." Marcus studied her, trying to reconcile the story he had heard with the unwavering honesty in her eyes. "I want to trust you," he admitted softly, "but it is difficult when appearances suggest otherwise." Meanwhile, the Wolf Chief arrived at the estate to deliver a message regarding a minor matter in the town. He found the tension immediately, the air thick with unspoken words. Elena stepped forward to explain, but Marcus, misreading the chief's serious demeanor as arrogance or entitlement, drew back slightly. "I assure you, The chief said calmly, his voice steady and composed, "My intentions toward Miss Elena are not to interfere with her commitments. I respect her choices and her loyalty. My focus is on ensuring her comfort and well-being while I am here not to cause strife." Elena felt a swell of gratitude and relief. The chief's words carried honesty and patience, diffusing a situation that might have escalated otherwise. Marcus, witnessing the sincerity, began to understand the truth of the matter, though lingering doubt remained. It was tempered by the chief's measured respect. After Marcus left, Elena turned to the wolf chief, a small smile of relief and delayed apology on her lips. "I am sorry for the misunderstanding," she said. "It seems appearances are sometimes more powerful than truth." The chief inclined his head, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. "Rumors are like wind. They may bend the branches, but they cannot touch the roots that stand firm. You have a strong heart, Elena. I trust that it will guide you." Her chest warmed at his words. There was no condescension, no frustration, only patience and quiet admiration. It was a stark contrast to how most people in positions of influence behaved, and Elena realized once again why she felt drawn to him despite the complications. That evening the two met again by the riverbank, away from the whispers and misunderstandings. The water mirrored the colors of the setting sun, and the soft rustle of leaves created a cocoon of privacy. Here, Elena felt the tension of the day melt away. The chief handed her a small token, a simple ribbon woven from a strand of his tribe's fabric, symbolizing patience and trust. "Trust is fragile," he said softly, "but it can be nurtured with care. Do not let the noise of others cloud what is real between us." Elena accepted it, her fingers brushing his briefly, and for a moment the world outside ceased to exist. The misunderstandings of the day, the whispers, and the tension all faded into insignificance compared to the quiet strength of their connection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, both knew that challenges would continue to arise. Yet the day had proven something essential, that patience, honesty, and respect could withstand even the weight of doubt and rumor. Each knew that the slow, steady pull between them was now undeniable. The dawn broke over the town in soft hues of gold and rose, and Elena found herself walking along the river path that had become a quiet refuge from the weight of expectation. Her thoughts were tangled, as they had been for weeks. Duty, loyalty, and promise pulled at her heart in one direction, while curiosity, admiration, and an undeniable attraction pulled in another. She had always been a woman of principle, yet the wolf chief's presence had awakened feelings she could neither dismiss nor fully understand. The wolf chief appeared from the shade of the trees ahead, as if he had been waiting. He did not speak immediately, simply observing her with those dark, perceptive eyes that seemed to see not just her outward form, but the very pulse of her thoughts. Elena felt a shiver of anticipation and trepidation. She had resolved many times to maintain the boundaries of her promise, yet his calm and steady presence made restraint more difficult than she expected. "Elena," he began, his voice low and measured, "you have always carried yourself with honor and grace. It is what drew me to you, not mere beauty, but the strength of your heart." Elena stopped walking, her gaze meeting his. I cannot ignore what I feel," she admitted, a mix of fear and honesty in her voice. "And yet, I promised myself to another. I don't know how to reconcile these conflicting truths." The chief stepped closer, but not in a way that forced a choice or applied pressure. "The heart does not always follow the plans we set for it," he said gently. "But it does speak truthfully if we take the time to listen. You do not owe me a decision born of obligation, only a choice born of understanding what is real between us." Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words settle in her chest. For the first time, she realized that her struggle was not simply about desire or duty, it was about authenticity. Could she acknowledge the growing connection she shared with the chief without feeling guilt? Could she trust that a choice of the heart, made honestly, might honor both herself and her commitments? The chief extended his hand, an invitation both literal and symbolic. "Walk with me," he said softly. "Let us speak of nothing but what is here and what is honest between us." Side by side, they strolled along the winding river path, the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle babble of water forming a cocoon of privacy. Elena found herself opening up in ways she had never imagined, sharing small fears, moments of doubt, and dreams for a life that balanced love and purpose. The chief listened, offering only encouragement and quiet reflection, never judgment. "I have learned much in these days," Elena said finally, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. "Not only about you, but about myself. I see now that my heart cannot be ignored even when my mind is filled with duty, and I see that your presence has taught me courage, patience, and trust." The chief stopped walking, turning to face her fully. His hand reached gently to hers, a gesture filled with respect and warmth. "Then you know what your heart tells you," he said quietly, "and you have the strength to honor it. Whatever choice you make, it must come freely, without fear or obligation. That is the only way it can be real." Tears pricked at Elena's eyes, but they were tears of clarity rather than confusion. She realized that she had been carrying the weight of expectation for so long that she had forgotten to listen to herself. And in that moment, she understood that her choice was not about rejecting duty or promise, it was about embracing truth and authenticity. I choose honesty," she whispered. "I choose what I feel is real." The chief's face softened, and for the first time, a rare smile broke across his lips. "Then let us move forward together," he said, his voice warm and full of quiet triumph. Not as conqueror and subject, not as obligation and compliance, but as equals with mutual respect and trust. As they stood together by the river, the sunlight glinting off the water and illuminating their intertwined hands, Elena felt a sense of peace and certainty she had not known in years. The world around them, with its expectations, rumors, and obligations, faded into insignificance. Here, in this moment, hearts aligned, trust was honored, and love began its quiet, unwavering bloom. The choice of the heart had been made, and it was real, tender, and mutual, a bond built not on force or circumstance, but on respect, patience, and understanding. The first light of morning spilled over the town, soft and golden, painting the rooftops and river in warmth. Elena stood at her window, gazing at the horizon with a sense of calm she had not felt in years. The weeks of uncertainty, the whispers of the town, the tension between duty and heart, all of it now felt like a distant shadow. Today, she had chosen her own path, padded by honesty, respect, and the quiet pull of love that had grown steadily between her and the Wolf Chief. The Wolf Chief approached the estate quietly, his presence unassuming yet commanding. When Elena turned to greet him, a smile spread across her face, bright and genuine. The chief returned it, his dark eyes softening, revealing the depth of emotion that had remained carefully hidden behind the composed exterior. "Good morning, Elena," he said, his voice rich and warm. "Are you ready for the day?" She nodded, her heart light. "Yes, and I am ready for what comes next, whatever that may be." Together, they walked through the town, now buzzing with morning activity. The townsfolk greeted the Wolf Chief with respect and curiosity, aware that the bond between him and Elena had transformed over the past weeks. There was no scandal, no tension, only a shared recognition that something rare and meaningful had blossomed in their midst. They arrived at the riverbank, the same place where so many quiet conversations and small revelations had taken place. Elena looked at him, her eyes reflecting both affection and gratitude. "These past days," she said softly, "have taught me more about courage, patience, and understanding than I ever imagined. And I am grateful for your guidance, your respect, and your heart." The wolf chief bowed slightly, a gentle smile gracing his lips. "And I have learned from you, Elena. You have shown me that strength and grace are not merely traits to be admired from afar, but qualities that inspire trust, patience, and care. I am honored to know you." A gentle breeze stirred, carrying the soft rustle of leaves and the scent of wildflowers. Elena reached for his hand, and he took it willingly, their fingers intertwining naturally. There was no need for grand declarations or promises of ownership. Everything had been understood through shared experience, mutual respect, and the honesty of their hearts. "Are you certain?" Elena asked, not out of doubt, but to honor the sincerity of their choice. "This path we are stepping onto, it may not be simple, but it is ours." "I am certain," the chief replied, his voice unwavering. "Not because the road is easy, but because it is true. And truth, when shared with respect and care, is the strongest foundation of all." They spent the rest of the morning together, walking along the river, sharing laughter, and enjoying the simple beauty of a world that had once seemed full of boundaries and expectations. With each step, the connection between them deepened, a bond built not on duty or obligation, but on patience, understanding, and the choice to embrace what was real. By midday, they returned to the estate where Elena's father, the general, awaited with a warm smile. He had observed the wolf chief's behavior over the past weeks and had seen the integrity, patience, and respect that defined him. Meeting Elena's gaze, he nodded slightly, silently conveying his approval. The chief bowed respectfully, acknowledging the general not as an adversary, but as a man whose trust had been earned. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Elena and the wolf chief stood once more at the riverbank. Lanterns were lit, their warm glow reflecting on the water, symbolizing hope, guidance, and the light of choices made with care. Hand in hand, they watched the lanterns float into the sky, knowing that life would bring challenges, but also that together they could face whatever came with honesty and courage. Elena leaned her head gently on the wolf chief's shoulder, and he rested his, not as a gesture of possession, but of partnership. In that quiet golden moment, they both understood that love was not about conquest or urgency. It was about respect, patience, and the slow, steady unfolding of hearts willing to meet one another with authenticity. The wolf chief whispered softly, "Whatever tomorrow brings, we face it together." Elena smiled, her heart full. "Together," she echoed, the word carrying the promise of trust, devotion, and a life chosen freely and with intention. And so, beneath the fading light of the sunset and the twinkling stars that began to appear above, two hearts stood side by side, ready to embrace a future built not on obligation, but on love, understanding, and the quiet strength of a bond that would endure all challenges.